All right, picture this. You're looking out over San Francisco Bay at night. It's pitch black, the water is literally freezing, and the currents
Currents are incredibly violent. And rising right out of that thick, dense fog is the ultimate inescapable fortress, Alcatraz. This was a supermax prison, right? Built specifically to hold the guys that the rest of the penal system just couldn't handle. We're talking 6 watchtowers, a 20-foot barbed wire fence, and the deadly freezing ocean acting as a giant moat. Breaking out of here wasn't just highly improbable, it was universally considered entirely impossible. Well, in this explainer, we're gonna reconstruct exactly how 3 guys absolutely shattered that illusion, pulling off what is easily one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's exactly 7 a.m. on June 12th, 1962. It's supposed to be just the start of a very typical, highly structured morning on the island. The guards are walking down those echoing cell blocks, doing their standard morning roll call, but there's a massive problem. Inmates Frank Morris, along with brothers John and Clarence Anglin, are completely unresponsive. From outside the bars, a guard looks in and he sees all 3 of these guys just lying there, completely still in their beds, seemingly fast asleep, and totally ignoring these loud, barking morning commands. So, the guard gets frustrated. He's probably expecting some sort of confrontation, right? So he walks over to Frank Morris's cell, reaches his arm right through those heavy iron bars, and gives the sleeping inmate a sharp tap on the head with his nightstick, just to wake him up. And right then and there, the guard gets the absolute shock of his life. Because Frank Morris's head, it simply rolls off the pillow and hits the floor. As one expert investigating the case put it later, he probably thought he had just decapitated the man. But obviously, it wasn't a man at all. It was this incredibly lifelike, meticulously painted papier-mâché dummy.
Instantly, total chaos erupts inside the most secure prison in America. The alarms are blaring, full lockdowns are initiated, and investigators are scrambling. But here's the thing, there wasn't just a crew of 3. There was actually a 4th guy, an inmate named Alan West. He just couldn't get the grate off his cell wall in time and was left behind. So he's caught sitting there with his own dummy head, desperate for a deal. And West, he becomes the key to the whole thing. He agrees to walk investigators step by step through exactly how they pulled off the impossible.
Now, it's really important to understand exactly who we're dealing with here. These definitely weren't your run-of-the-mill opportunistic inmates, okay? Frank Morris was an incredibly accomplished career criminal. He'd been bouncing around the penal system since he was just 13 years old, mostly for robbery. And he was actually so skilled at breaking out of facilities that he earned the nickname the Houdini of the prison system. Then you have John and Clarence Anglin, also career criminals, famously known for robbing an Ohio bank using a toy gun. But crucially, all 3 of these guys were sent to Alcatraz specifically because they had already attempted to escape from Leavenworth Prison. They were dedicated, lifelong escape artists. This is what they did.
According to West, who claimed to be the mastermind behind all this, the sheer patience required for this plan was just staggering. The mechanics of their exit started right below their cell sinks, where there sat a small air vent. Now, because saltwater from the bay constantly wreaked havoc on the prison's concrete, it had actually softened and deteriorated over time. So the inmates fashioned makeshift tools out of stolen dining hall spoons, spoons, and they spent endless nights painstakingly scraping away the concrete around their vents, taking turns standing guard for one another in the pitch dark. To hide these growing holes from the guards, who, remember, are conducting strict hourly checks, they used green paint that West stole from his prison job to paint the scraped areas. Eventually, they crafted fake papier-mâché vents to just plug the gaps completely. From 9 feet away, looking into that shadowy cell, it looked entirely normal. Once they finally got through those holes, they climbed up pipes in this hidden maintenance corridor behind the cells to reach the roof. And once up there, they spent weeks, maybe even months, quietly filing down the heavy iron bolts of a roof vent.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how insanely resourceful these guys were. I mean, to gain the time necessary to be out of their cells at night filing those heavy roof bolts, they needed a flawless alibi, right? So they created those famous dummy heads. And they didn't just use standard art supplies. They used whatever literal scraps they could secretly hoard. We're talking concrete dust, soap, cement. And for the absolute finishing touch of realism that ended up fooling the guards in that dim light, Clarence Anglin actually went into the prison barbershop, swept up real human hair clippings, and meticulously pasted them onto the tops of the fake heads. It's brilliant. But listen, getting onto the roof was only half the battle. They still had to survive the dark, turbulent, freezing waters of San Francisco Bay. And this is where it gets crazy. The escapees essentially engineered a survival vessel out of pure prison contraband. Using a Popular Mechanics magazine for inspiration, yes, really, they stole dozens of prison-issued rubber raincoats and used a special waterproof glue to construct a homemade inflatable raft, along with several life preservers. And to inflate this makeshift raft, they didn't just rely on blowing into it. They stole a musical instrument, a concertina, and ingeniously modified it to act as a mechanical bellows to pump air into the raft. They even fashioned paddles out of scrap wood and plywood they found laying around the prison. It's just a staggering display of MacGyver-esque engineering. So the timeline brings us to the most critical, terrifying moment of the entire plan. Sometime around 10 p.m. on that foggy June night, having squeezed through the maintenance shafts, crossed over the massive roof, and somehow evaded the heavy watchtowers, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers push their raincoat raft into the treacherous waters of the bay. They slip into the cold, foggy darkness, and they are never seen again. Now, the immediate assumption by the FBI and honestly the general public was that if they survived the water at all, they would have taken the absolute shortest route, meaning they would head south toward San Francisco, which was only about a mile away. So the massive twist here is that Alan West's testimony completely flipped what the FBI expected. He revealed their actual planned route was not south to the city, but 2 miles north. They were heading out toward Angel Island. And when you think about it, the tactical genius behind choosing Angel Island over the much closer coast of San Francisco was simple. Angel Island was an actively decommissioning military missile base. It was being taken offline, which meant there were very, very few people stationed there at any given time. This gave our escapees some massive advantages. First off, they could avoid washing up in a heavily populated city where they'd be instantly recognized, running around in soaking wet prison garb. Second, they theorized there might be actual boats left tied up at the decommissioned base that they could steal. And third, Angel Island was incredibly close to the Marin County mainland. We're talking only a quarter of a mile away. So West's confession sounded like a wild tale to some of the investigators at first. But a few days after the escape, physical evidence started turning up in the bay that gave his story undeniable credibility. Investigators searching the waters near Angel Island found a makeshift wooden paddle, exactly like the ones West had described them building. They also found a tightly sealed packet made from that exact same rubber raincoat material. And inside that waterproof packet, personal photos belonging to the Anglin family. The debris field was perfectly aligning with that northern route West said they took. Let's move to the investigation and see how this builds, because the timeline here is where the story completely transforms from a closed historical event into a gripping, modern, true crime thriller. So after the escape in '62, the FBI chases dead ends for 17 long years. Finally, on December 31st, 1979, the Bureau officially closes the case. They just assume the men drowned in the bay, and they hand the dormant file over to the U.S. Marshals. And there it sits, just gathering dust. Until 2003. That's when a U.S. Marshal named Michael Dyke decides to just poke around the old government archives, just to see if he could find anything new to add to this famous story. Because the one central question that had plagued investigators and captivated the public for literally decades still remained. Did they actually make it? Most experts heavily insisted the freezing temperatures and aggressive currents would have killed them long before they ever reached Angel Island. But what Michael Dyke uncovered, buried deep in that forgotten paperwork, was about to challenge everything the official government narrative claimed. Digging deep into local police records from 1962, Dyke finds something absolutely astonishing. A police report from Marin County. Remember, that is the exact mainland destination Alan West said they were heading for after Angel Island. On the very night of the escape, a 1955 blue Chevy was reported stolen right there in Marin County. And even more compelling, an eyewitness to the auto theft explicitly stated they saw 3 men inside the vehicle. Now, at the time, in '62, the Alcatraz escape wasn't public knowledge yet. It was under wraps, so the local cops just never connected the dots. But wait, it actually gets crazier. Dyke keeps digging, and he finds a secondary police report originating from Stockton, California, which is almost 100 miles east of Marin County. Just a few hours after that 1955 blue Chevy was reported stolen, a man in Stockton filed a police report stating he was forced off the road by a reckless driver. The vehicle? A blue Chevy. The occupants? Driven by 3 men. I mean, the timeline, the location, the vehicle description, and the number of suspects all line up with terrifying precision. It gives absolute, undeniable credence to the theory that these guys actually reached the mainland. If those old police reports are to be trusted, it completely shatters that long-held assumption that the bay just swallowed them up. We really have to face the cold, hard fact of this investigation. No bodies have ever been produced. None. No physical evidence of their death has ever been found at the bay or washed up on the shores. Despite the brutal, inescapable reputation of Alcatraz and the lethal, freezing reputation of that water, there is zero forensic proof that those 3 men died that night. So what does this all mean? We are left with the ultimate mystery. Did the ultimate underdogs actually beat the inescapable fortress? These were men who had bounced in and out of institutions their entire lives. They used nothing but stolen spoons, barbershop hair clippings, and some old raincoats to literally fight the most powerful penal system in the world. And maybe, just maybe, they won. It remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. So what do you think really happened out there in the fog? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always question the impossible.